Okay, what compound inequality represents the phrase, then graph the solutions? Um, all real numbers, and what we're going to use, we're just going to pick a variable for this, and it doesn't designate a variable, so we will say, I'll just call it x. Okay? All real numbers that are greater than -8, so this x has to be greater than this low number, -8, and less than 8. It can't be equal to. Okay, it's just got to be greater than -8 and less than 8. Okay, so what can we do here? Oops. Well, what we can do is label our number line. Let's say this is 0, then counting here, this is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. And so then we've got, excuse me, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. And then, of course, -6, -7, -8. -8 is right here. Okay, so I'm going to put a dot right there. And can we fill it in? No, it does not say or equal, so we can't fill it in. Okay, I'm going to go the other way. So I'm going to say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. Going 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10. Okay, so then our high end is 8, and that's here. Can we fill it in? No, we cannot, because it does not say or equals. So if we go down to this this low end point here at -8, we're talking x is all values greater than that. So we are on this side of it going greater. Okay? And of course, from this other end point down here at 8, we're talking about x being values less than. So we're on this side of it. So what we're doing is we're shading the in-between of these two points, where we have the endpoints at -8 and 8, but we do not include them. Okay? So moving on, we say, okay, all real numbers w. We know what variable we're using now, so we're going to say it's w. And we're talking about values of w that are less than -7, or, and notice this part, or we've got a compound inequality that's written like this. W is less than -7, or W is greater than 14. Okay, now, if you think about it logically, you can't be both less than -7 and greater than 14 at the same time. So what we have is a split inequality here when we graph it. Okay, so I'm going to actually go by 2. So I'm going to say this is 0, and let's go by 2s. This is 2, this is 4, this is 6, this is 8, this is 10. Okay, and 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. And then going lower, we say, okay, this is -2, -4, -6, -8, -10. Okay, because what we have now is we've got endpoints at those two numbers that they gave us at -7. And -7 is right here. It says -2, -4, -6. We're right in between that. So we're right there at -7, okay? And we've got an endpoint at 14. And again, if this is 10 and we're going by 2s, this is 10, 12, 14. 14's right there. Okay, now how do we shade it? Well, let's go to the first endpoint, -7, down here. Okay, and this is saying W is values less than that. So what we've got to be doing is pointing to values less than that. And you can see that we can just say that arrow is going to keep going that way. Okay, and this endpoint up here at 14, this says W is greater than that. W is on the large side of the inequality. That alligator eats the bigger number, right? So what's it eating? What values of W do we have? Values that are greater than 14. And so this is this right here. And we do not include them because it says it's just simply less than -7 or greater than 14. It doesn't say or equals or anything like that. Okay? So when you have that or, and you can see that or that I circled right here, okay, versus this and, you can be greater than this point and less than this at the same time. If you're in here, you're both greater than this, less than this for number 63. Okay? But when it says or, you're either less than -7, you're either down here, or you're up here greater than 14. Can't be both places at once. Got it? Okay. So here we've got all real numbers at least -5 and at most 9. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my number line. Okay, and if that's 0, I'm going to say this is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 5. And 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10. And I'm going to go the other way as well from 0. This is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5 right there. Okay, you see because of the numbers that they gave us that we have endpoints at -5 and at 9. We'll determine whether we fill them in a second. Okay, but this says all real numbers at least -5. Okay, so the least that it can be is -5. Can it be -5? Yeah, that's just the least that it can be. Can't be any lower than that, but it can be -5. Okay, so it's at least that, and or greater, right? Because if that's the least, then we've got to be talking about going, larger than that. So we go this way. Okay, now let's go to the endpoint at 9. At most 9. Can you be 9? Yeah, that's just the most you can be. But you can be that. So we fill it in. Okay, and since that's the most we can be, we can't have any numbers bigger than that, but we can have numbers less than that. And so we have this shaded area in between with those endpoints filled in. Okay? And one more, and we're done with this. All real numbers at most -8.5 or at least 6.5. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label our endpoints. I'm going to say, first of all, I got to label my number line. If that's 0, then this is 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5. Okay, and going backwards, I say -1, -2, -3, -4, -5 right there. And continuing to go back, -6, -7, -8, -9, -10 right there. Okay. Okay, so where are our endpoints? Well, we've got an endpoint at -8.5, so where's that? Well, if these are going by ones, this is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8. This is -8. This is -9. So right between -8 and -9 is -8.5. And that's our endpoint right there. Okay? Going the other way, we say, where's the other endpoint? Well, it's at least 6.5. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 6, and this is 7. Right between 6 and 7, 6.5. So we've got an endpoint there. Okay? Now let's go down to the endpoint where it says all real numbers at most 8.5. Okay, and notice we've got an or situation here. So this is going to be split, and that gives you an indication that we should probably be shading this side, right? Okay, at most 8.5. So that means that we're saying we can be 8.5, and so we're going to color that in, right? But that's the most we can be for this side. We can be less than that. Okay. But the most we can be on this side is up to -8.5. Or we're on the other side with this other portion. We are at least, the very least lowest number that we're allowed to be is 6.5. That means that we can be stuff above it. Okay? But that's the least we can be if we're on this side. All right? And so, whoops. We've got this split inequality, and you can see when it says or, like these the number 64 or number 66. When it says or, we're splitting them up. Okay. Now, if it says at least something, you can include that number. If it says at most something, you can include that number. Okay. At least and at most are on 65 as well, so you see the endpoints are included. But if it just says less than or greater than, then you can't count those numbers as endpoints. You can't fill them in.